SMT Nation, we are back. Nation, in today's video, we're going to talk about this huge deal that Verizon seemingly has made to acquire Frontier Communications. Since this was announced, this was an article that was actually posted by the Wall Street Journal, and they broke the story, and this made waves throughout the entire industry. Obviously, it was a big piece of news on our channel, and I'm here to tell you guys, this was quite the brilliant move from Verizon. I'm going to tell you guys how they played it, why this all made sense, and how they're kind of taking advantage of the situation. I think to one of the best moves we've seen Verizon make in a long time. Let's do our history lesson. Let's talk about what Verizon is getting and why this move is so brilliant. So to understand what Verizon is getting out of Frontier, you kind of have to understand what Frontier is, what they were, and what they become. All right, so with respect to the history of all this, Frontier Communications was basically the wireline business that Verizon sold back in 2010. The deal was, I think, approved by the FCC in that calendar year, somewhere around like mid-year. And in the process, you know, they basically were the wireline Verizon business. So the operations within about 14 states, I think it was for like maybe 5 million connected wirelines of some estimation, I think. That is a pretty sizable wireline network. And at the time, it was all DSL. It was copper. It was like that for a while. But then Frontier started to invest in their business, obviously. And much of that has been turning into fiber. So in a deal that was valued at about $5.3 billion in stock and about $3.3 billion in cash, that kind of lets you know the size and the scale of the financials on that deal. So Verizon was paid pretty handsomely for their wireline assets. By the way, Verizon was also 68% owner of Frontier based on shareholder value.
What?
They were a majority shareholder of Frontier after this deal. So what did Verizon do after that deal, after they sold all those wireline assets to Frontier? Well, they invested heavily into the wireless network. And they won in wireless, and nobody was even close. In fact, it wouldn't probably be almost a decade before anybody was actually able to compete. And by that, it took AT&T a FirstNet contract, billions of dollars in investment, and then for T-Mobile, it took multiple mergers, the acquisition and elimination of Sprint, along with tons of spectrum, in order to just compete with Verizon. They absolutely dominated the decade when it came to wireless. So Verizon built the biggest network, they built the most reliable network, they became the name when it came to wireless, industry-leading revenues, best in industry margins, huge amounts of free cash flow. Verizon dominated on the financial side as well as on the networking side, and they accrued the largest, highest concentration of market share on a national scale. No matter where you went, folks just had Verizon. They built towers, and they built more towers, and they bought towers, and they bought regional carriers, and they built One Fiber, and they expanded their MCI investments. And they just kept doing this network thing after they sold to Frontier and took all those assets and established a wireless and wireline kingdom. What has Frontier done ever since this point? Well, Frontier has been building out a bigger network. They've been upgrading to fiber in all those areas that were with all those outdated assets, you know, the copper and DSL. And of course, you know, fiber is a better technology. It allows you to sell the service at a higher cost because it's a higher performing service. You can demand more money. So it made sense that they were investing into their core business. The process of getting all these BEAD dollars and all this government funding, they obviously did all the upgrading, built new from scratch greenfield builds, and making themselves a pretty attractive acquisition target, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. This new deal with Verizon acquiring their old company assets is estimated to be valued at $7 billion. So I want you guys to do the math on that. This deal is $7 billion. The old deal was for $5.3 billion in stock and $3.3 billion in cash. They are essentially buying their network back, plus getting it upgraded to fiber and expanding it free of cost. They're literally buying it back for like less than what they sold it for. We're not even going to get into inflation and the cost of building networks, how it's increased over the course of the last 14 years, the last 8 years, the last 6 years, the last 2 years. Costs only go up over time. So Verizon is making out like a bandit. So they sold to Frontier and made tons of money. And they became the majority shareholder of that company. Now they're buying it back at a massive discount. And it's been modernized to a large extent. Yeah! What a move for Verizon. I think Hans Vestberg probably gets a tip of the cap. I think from a lot of folks can probably acknowledge that this is one hell of a deal. We've been seeing a lot of deals being made. T-Mobile's been pretty busy in these types of transactions too. But not to this scale and not to this value. And I don't think Verizon is done. I think Verizon will be involved at the very least to get Dish assets. And those are wireless assets, right? They don't own wireline operations. But this firmly puts Verizon back into an expanding fiber company. And by fiber, I'm not just talking about fiber to their tower sites. This is fiber to the premise. And it puts them in the forefront of America in terms of the Midwest. And in some places, it's rural America, where, churn rate is very low and the convergence factor is really important and the ARPU is really high. So hats off to Hans, hats off to the team at Verizon, I think, for striking a great deal. We'll look back, I think, at this deal and probably say this was one of the best deals that Verizon has ever made. And probably one of the better deals ever made in the industry. I think Verizon did really good with this one. Now, before we, just automatically assume this is all good, obviously it's not official until it's official. And in the time of the production of this video, it is, quote unquote, a deal that's in the works. But it's probably going to happen. I don't think it's going to be restricted. I mean, why would it? There have been a lot of mergers and acquisitions lately, and I don't see that really changing. Why would it change now for Verizon? You know what I mean? But when it becomes official, it becomes official, and we'll report on it, and we'll talk about it. And, I will tell you guys this, with Verizon becoming the owner of all this fiber, and in some places it's still DSL and the network's pretty old and legacy. Verizon sells fixed wireless access 5G home internet. They'll get those customers onto the 5G home internet until they get fiber to their premise. That's probably the way they're going to play this. So if you're a Frontier customer and you've been using crappy old DSL, be on the lookout for upgrades from Verizon if and when they do, this whole transaction. Things are about to get better for you because, I think Verizon's got a lot of money to sink into the network and they can upgrade it and make it better for you, whether it's through 5G home internet or it's from fiber. Be on the lookout for some moves from Verizon with this transaction. Now you guys know where Frontier has been. Now you know where Verizon has been. Now you know what's going to be coming down the pipeline. And you guys can drop me a comment and tell me what you think about all this. I'd love to hear what you have to say on it. Maybe there's some intricate details I may have missed, or there's some things that you had some insight on because you lived in a Frontier market or you had Frontier service and you kind of saw this whole thing play out. Tell me about what your opinions, thoughts, and experiences are in regards to this transaction and the history of Frontier and Verizon. Thanks for watching. Please do comment, like, share, and subscribe for more, and we'll see you all on the next video. Peace.
SMT Nation, it is time for me to introduce to you Aura. Give you guys an incredible suite of cybersecurity protections to keep everything that you do online safe, keeping you safe from identity theft, scams, online threats, including protections for your entire family. They offer pretty much a worry-free trial period. Obviously, the pricing is very competitive, starting at $12 per month. They've got one simple and easy app for you to use. They've got incredible features, $1 million in coverage, 24/7 expert fraud support, transparent pricing, the money-back guarantee at 60 days with a free trial, no strings attached. So with the odds of falling victim to an online crime being 1 in 4, this would change everything. Really should check them out. The financial fraud protection is worth its weight in gold. Help keep your kids protected within boundaries that you set forth for them. Proven to be the fastest, most reliable fraud alert system. And it's as simple as choosing your plan, simply setting up how you're enrolled, and then getting notified for all the things that it's monitoring. Start your free trial now. Use our link. It's down in the description, and it's also here on the screen, aura.com/Sneed. You guys can click the URL. It's hyperlinked down in the description. And again, it's up here on the screen, aura.com/Sneed. Protect yourself from all the digital threats that's out there in the world.